Alright, we've got a lot to cover this time, so let's just hop straight in. Intros are boring anyway, who cares? I don't have an ad, I don't have an intro. Straight to the video. Since the video's not blind this time, I'm able to have done a little bit of research beforehand and knew the general start that I needed. You need some wood for a crafting bench, you need to gather some string from the banners, and make your sieve, whatever it's called, doesn't matter, not using it. As I went along in this challenge, I ran across multiple plans that ended up failing and having to come up with workarounds or more consistent solutions, even if they were gated behind a collection of RNG drops from various parts of the map. As of recording this commentary, I'm unsure if the map is actually beatable or not. I have a plan to progress through, and hopefully that will be enough to make it all the way. It does pose a question if I'm allowed to make the various items in sluices, sieves for the quest rewards. In this current episode, and as I am recording the next parts, I have not done that, but if the comments will allow me, I won't mind taking extra rewards for free. With the first few quests done and Barrel Smasher in hand, it is obviously best to go test that out and break all of the barrels nearby, hopefully finding something of use. I was originally worried about wood, because your first source is supposed to be through the sluices, but they conveniently add a whole bunch of jungle trees around as palm trees growing on islands. That solves one problem for me. Thankfully, a raft is made available through bamboo and string that I've gotten from the barrels through a bit of lucky RNG, and I'm able to get around the ocean much faster than I was able to before. Considering that probably 70-ish% of the time in this challenge so far, I have spent on the ocean or in lava, for a bit of a spoiler in the future. Having access to fast travel is very nice. A small mycelium island does show me access to a wild and stalker spawner that will also come in handy far in the future. But until then, it's time to make a tiny little base, I'm going to put in air quotes. An iron chest is nice, but is not quite applied energistics. Hopefully I get that soon. I miss it. While exploring the various structures around my house, I find a skeleton spawner in the side of the lighthouse. Thinking ahead, I realize, hey, I can use this as starter inferium, and use that to get into mystical agriculture, which will allow me to grow most of the materials that I need later on. I'm interrupted by an airdrop coming in, which spawns with both some lovely chests full of loot that's whatever at this point, but does have red wool on the sails, so I will use it to get into mystical agriculture once I get some gold. It's a fairly nice plan, I think. Sometimes RNG hates you and gives you multiple sea pickles out of barrels. Other times, it does decide to give you a bit of a bone with an exo helmet, a permanent night vision granting helmet that is unbreakable. I don't know what I did to deserve such nice drops so early on. I accept. I begin working on a basic little spawner setup, which thankfully this building has a flow of water in the center. I'm going to use that to push the skeletons over to the corner, as I have no access to iron or a way to move water around yet, really. Theoretically, I'd be able to get clay buckets and porcelain things fairly soon, but in the meantime, I'm stuck with this, and it's going to be good enough for getting the 9 Inferium. We can keep an eye on my experience in the platform to see how long this took. 7 to 8 for the first one, up to level 18 to get the final one. I need 9 because you need 8 to make a seed, and the last one will be used to make Inferium farmland for the quest requirement. Seeing as I need a wheat seed, thankfully I got a grass seed from a barrel, and I set it up to spread on this small dirt platform, bone meal the grass for seeds of various varieties. After reading the quest book and learning you have to have your seeds waterlogged essentially to grow, I plop them down in a underwater platform and try to twerk grow them. I learned way later that you have to have a hoe in your hand to twerk grow. Oh well, they grow fast enough on their own anyway. It is unfortunately at this point that I discover that I have no real access to prosperity shards without sluicing for a very long time. I discovered that you can get iron through compressed cobblestone, so as long as I can get a cobblestone generator, that will be good enough to source iron for as long as I need it. On a better note, I find out that there is a consistent source of slime balls via kelp goo. I make a strainer for the quest and then immediately trash it without ever putting it into any water. Get my comlink, which allows me to have a mini-map, thankfully, finally, and I look at how far I've swam out trying to find things. That map gets a lot bigger later on. Another airdrop arrives, and I get some redstone. For a long while, this will be the only source I have available of that as well, so it is imperative that I grab as many of these as I can. I really wasn't sure if they would have disabled the door trick to get breath underwater in this mod pack, but nope, still works. So this allows me to explore underwater a bit more easily, and I nab a lapis block out of this structure, something that is going to be very important later on. I did fly a little bit too close to the sun here as I got greedy for the amethyst block. It turns out when you go below 128 depth, you are in crush depth territory. I knew this, but figured, no problem, I'll swim out. When you're being knocked around like a lunatic, you in fact cannot swim out. And I was compressed to death. Thankfully, with the back command existing, I'm able to do that multiple times in a row and get my loot. But it is a very tedious process, with back having a 20-second cooldown. After frantically swimming my way back to the surface, I decide, it's time to head home and see what spoils we have and what we can do with them, see what ways we can expand and make a new plan to progress further. For some reason, my plan was to go back and get crushed to death repeatedly while trying to open crates and being knocked around by the water. That was a pretty stupid plan in hindsight, but technically it was a way to get iron, so good job, past me. Just as a bit of an aside, I know, obviously, that yes, I could set up a mob farm and slowly kill zombies over and over again, which is why I begin this backup mob farm as an emergency in case I have no other way to get iron. I just find mob farms as your sole source of basic resources to be kind of, boring, unless it's for mob-specific drops like blaze rods. I wanted to avoid that, and I think I found a much cooler way to get the iron that I need. I stumble upon a skystone meteor that is actually within reach of the 128th crush depth, and make sure to gather all of the Certus and inscriber presses that I need. I've been eyeing this castle-like structure near my base every time that I float on by, so it's time to delve in and see what is available inside. Firstly, I confirm that this is chiselable back into deep slate, which it is, granting me access to deep slate in the future. Doing my best Thieves Simulator imitation, I break in through the window instead of the front door 3 inches away. Decide, I need to light everything up, even though there are obvious lights around everywhere. I learn that there are some spider spawners as well as bogged spawners, which I guess are poison-shooting skeletons. Didn't know that was a thing. Today I learned. I believe that my old Minecraft habits are coming into show here as I make sure to extensively light up every section as much as possible, even though it is not particularly required, given the amount of light. But I do find this nice little area with both a smithing table and an anvil, 2 sources of iron if I'm able to find a way to melt them down or something along those lines. Moving up the tower while frantically lighting it all up, I find another bogged spawner, break it down before ascending to the top floor, where there are ores, including inferium. So I didn't need the mob spawner. But anyway, these little devils spawn, and let me just play some sounds of theirs for you. As Isn't that just lovely and heartwarming? Exactly what you need on a cold winter's day, the demonic snarls and laughs of a little demon trying to cheer you up. After fighting what feels like an eternity of these things, I set to the side and get mining and try to figure out what's going on with these ores and barrels over here. I figure the spawner just takes its time before popping until I find this little nuisance hanging out on the side of the wall. Great. I guess I get to play hunter now. Thankfully, he decided to go for a bit of a ride on my raft, so he made himself an easy target. Returning back up to the roof, I'm able to grab my spoils. Some golden apples, some of the abyssal pearls, as well as some source gems and gold, which is great. Except that I don't actually have access to mystical agriculture. We'll figure something out. Looking through the rest of the ores, we managed to gather diamonds, emeralds, as well as replica ore, a new mod for this mod pack, I believe, that allows you to, as the name implies, replicate things. Now that I have source stones, I look and see that it is theoretically possible for me to create a Silk Touch book. That will likely be my methodology of gathering iron, because the raw iron you currently get is not smeltable. I assume to have you use sluices. So I make it my mission to go around and hit up as many of these castles as possible, gathering the source gems, before trying one of the underwater trials instead, hoping maybe it has iron or steel as a reward. I am instead met with the giant goop monster and laser beam reindeer. Okay, sure. Thankfully, the enchanted golden apples are fairly adept at making you nigh unkillable in most situations, so using that as a crutch, I'm able to make my way through the fight. I'm rewarded for my efforts with some lights, pieces of turtle, a heart of the sea, and an elytra, before I traverse to another dungeon type. This one, probably the most annoying of all of them, because there's evokers, which spawns vexes, which follow you through walls and out in the ocean and wherever the hell they want to go. I was also erroneously under the notion that they die when the evoker dies that summoned them. Maybe that's a different mod that adds that's not present. I don't know, but these hunted me down. Thankfully, I was just barely able to get away back on my raft and paddled away for dear life. After time, the Vex did despawn, and I was able to make my way back to the trial chamber and grab the Totems of Undying, as well as a scroll that taught me how to make a bone ring. Yay! Editing note here, I can't read. That says Bane. While I was going through JEI to attempt to find a way to get the various items that I will need to progress through the quest book in the mod pack itself, I did at least sit nearby my mob spawner and occasionally try to kill things before opting to go on a suicide run again. Breaking the wrong crate type, actually, to even get iron, so I was actually fully just wasting my time in Totems of Undying here. This very interesting airdrop spawned in with some triple compressed cobblestone, which is amazing for early game cobble for me, as well as some mage bloom seeds. Also very nice for generating source through an agronomic source link. There were also golden eggs, which I will make use of for Arge mobs later on. As mentioned, I would like to get the items that I need, iron in this particular case, without just doing normal mechanics and opting for something a bit more creative. But if I do happen to get it in the meantime, it will be a nice boon that will save me time. So I do expand the mob farm out to a larger cube, but don't get any drops. One plus side of being able to run on a server this time is that every time I come back, my farm is nice and grown, and Ultimine makes it very simple to harvest. This is when I fully commit to the Silk Touch book of iron ore blocks being the best solution for my progression. So I begin making the source stone, pedestals, and enchanting apparatus that I will need in order to actually craft the book. Thankfully, we found the anvil already to put the book on a pickaxe, so that part is already solved. Thank you, Modpack. This does have the unfortunate side effect of me having to clear these castle trials over and over and over again until getting enough source gems, because I do not have access to the actual imbuement chamber. Thankfully, there are archwood slabs in these castles that I can make source jars out of, but the recipe to turn them back into planks does not exist. Nor can I reasonably get any of the archwood trees to begin with, as that requires going to the nether, having some amount of power, etc., which I will need iron for. More drops as always, as I look at the recipe one last time to see I need 9,000 source, which implies to me that I need 9 source jars, because each of them probably holds about a bucket, as well as an actual way to generate the source, in this case an agronomic source link, gaining source off of our growing plants. As you can see, the cute little ray going up here. One short montage of trial spawners later, as unfortunately they are very stingy with the source gems. I am a long way from home as I discover a second one of these ocean monument things that has the lapis block inside of it. I barely am able to grab it as it is at Y125 or so. And just as a point of reference as to how far I have gone out, ignoring my stack of deaths over here, trying to break the crates for iron, 5,000 blocks away from spawn in that one direction. More loot. My source jars are filling up on their own quite quick, augmented by the extra seeds that I keep on getting from the random dungeons, including wood, dye, cotton, bell pepper, some things I'll use to get extra hearts eventually when I feel like crafting a bunch of food. But I set up a routine to go around amongst 5 different of the castles in a loop. By the time I get done, the first one is just about done with its 30-minute cooldown. This took a while. So, have a quick montage of the various times that I looted, and also arrived early to the trial spawners instead of on time, until I finally get the final source gems. Using them to make the pedestals, remembering, unfortunately, that I need an arcane core right at the last moment, and thankfully have 1 extra source gem. I set up a small enchanting area, core down, apparatus on top, all the pedestals surrounding it, before coming to the stark realization that the recipe requires 2 full source blocks as well as the entire setup. So it is back to the dungeons. So many dungeons. So many dungeons. To the point where I set up elevators on top and on bottom so that I may ascend to them quickly as soon as I get to each one. Wow, was this a time drain. Thankfully, on Christmas Eve of all days, right before I was about to head into work, I do get the final source gems that I needed. Make my way over to the altar. Emeralds, lapis, diamonds. The final source block. Where's the final source block? Where's the final source block? Where is the final source block? Am I not done with the dungeons? Oh god. Yeah, somehow I thought I only needed 1. So I returned back to being a slave to the dungeons, getting very excited and throwing my raft down when I do get some source gems, although unfortunately I got the 3 drop instead of the 4, so I have to continue on until finally, I get the final, super final source gem block, right? Everything's ready, and it's going to use all 9 source jars. Why are 9 of them not empty? Why did it only... Each one holds 10,000. Well, that's good to know. I'm set on source for a while. I prepare a brand new pickaxe out of diamond, make my way to the anvil, and I'm finally able to mine the ore that has been sitting at this spot since probably 12 hours prior, as it took almost 20 hours to get my very first iron ore. Very secretly hoping that there's no additional Cube.js script that blocks you from burning this in a furnace for some reason as well. I do have my first iron ingots. I do need to immediately get rid of them and make cast iron so that I can make the tempered jar, as this will allow me to smelt up raw iron. Finally, would have made this process a lot simpler if I could have gotten one cast iron from anywhere too. Alas, it took a tiny, insignificant amount of time to get the rest of the way, and I got to do it in an interesting way as well. As a capstone of achievement on this endeavor, I get 2 tempered glass jars, set up one to be heated and one to be ambient temperature for different recipes. Make the mistake of putting them right beside each other so it gets used as storage instead. Oopsie. Burn through my raw iron, finally, and get a bucket, which I use to withdraw the lava from the accidental storage jar, and use it to make a cobblestone generator. I immediately upgraded to the iron version as well, and since I have all the resources, might as well make the gold one too. With the gold generator in hand, I set up a drawer on top with some upgrades, since this will be running in a server, and I wait while planning out the next parts and editing this part. That process took a little bit longer than expected, and I ended up with a few cobblestone. Next time I figure out how to make steel. Surely that'll be a little faster than iron, right? Thanks for watching.